Hi guys, it's Jen and I'm excited to bring you another video in my Out of the Pocket series. This is a series where I show you how to take Project Life cards or pocket page cards and use them on your scrapbook layouts, because I don't do Project Life, but I love the pretty cards that I find out there. And so today I'm going to be scrapbooking this photo of my daughter and my niece who are pushing my nephew, and they were fighting the whole time over who got to push him. And so I kind of wanted to tell that little story. And I'm going to be using this paper from Shamel, which is from her True Stories collection with American Crafts. And that's going to be my base paper. And then I'm going to use my cards to embellish the layout. So I find that sometimes the hard part for me of using these Project Life cards on a layout is that they're really blocky, right? So I feel like if I just put a bunch of these on a layout, it can have a tendency to look blocky, whereas my natural style is more freeform. And so what I'm going to do today is cut pieces out of these cards. So I think it's important to know that you don't have to feel stuck by using the card as it is. Don't be afraid to cut them up, especially if you get the Project Life kits that have several of the same card in one kit. You're not going to miss one of the 3 cards or however many that you get in the package. And so I'm mostly today going to be using the Maggie Holmes Open Book set Project Life. Is it called the set? I can't remember. Anyway, I'm mostly going to be using the Maggie Holmes Open Book collection, and I wanted to show you a few of the different kinds of ways that I would cut these cards up. So this is an example where I might cut out just this little piece here and use that as an element on my layout. This is the same kind of deal where I get the look of layered pieces of paper, but I don't have to do the work. So I could just cut this whole element out and stick it on my page like I've embellished it. This is another instance where I would like fussy cut around the flowers. And I could fussy cut around the camera. Like if I just stick the camera on here, that looks nice. But if I cut the camera out, it looks a little bit more like an embellishment rather than a card, which I like. So I thought the same thing with this camera. I could cut out the 3 here because there's 3 kids. And I thought on this one I could do the same where I cut around this little wreath. So now I'm getting into ones that are a little bit more blocky where I could cut out this like a specific shape out of the card. So there are these different options here, and if I wanted to cut out the center of this one, I could use it as a frame. This one, a journaling spot. If I didn't want the heaviness of the black, I could cut that off. A tag, a circle, and a little square. And then I thought for my title, I would use this card. This is a Heidi Swapp card that says adore, and I'm going to cut around the word adore and have the title be They Adore Him, because that's what this layout really is all about. And then I pulled a few other 4x6 cards. These are from the Maggie Holmes Open Book collection that I thought I could cut out that heart, these little label pieces. There's a lot of journaling cards that have these little label shapes on them. So what I'm going to do is cut some of these elements out, and then I'll come back and show you how I plan to use them. Okay, so I've cut out all of these little pieces, and there's a lot of them, so it's possible that I won't use all of them, but I cut out the ones that I thought I might use, and I didn't use all of the cards that I showed. I did actually add in a little card from the Heidi Swapp Gold Foil Project Life mini kit, and I would have punched that out with my 1-inch circle punch, but I don't know where it is right now, so I just cut it out too. And so now I have all of these little bits to work with, and then if I need another extra pop of color once I get working, then I have all of these pieces that I can pull little bits from or punch stuff out from. So I'll keep these close, and then I can go ahead and get started on my layout. So before I start, I thought I might add a little something to the background just because I want to give it a little something extra than just this printed paper. So first what I'm going to do is cut off the manufacturer's strip. And I really actually like the way it looks on the bottom, so I might end up just gluing it back to the bottom, but I'm going to put it aside for now while I decide. And I'm going to put a little bit of color on the background. So I know I'm going to put my photo towards the bottom right because I'm using something called leading lines. The lines in my photo are kind of leading up and to the left a little bit, and so I want my eye to be able to continue to go up that way. If I were to put it up here, then it would lead my eye off the page. Although in this case, it probably would work because my niece is looking back, and so I always look at where the eyes of the person in the photo are looking, or where what they're turned toward, or to the leading lines in my photo for placement. So I'm gonna this time put it at the bottom right. And since my niece is looking back, she kind of is looking this way a little bit, even though she's turned this way. So anyway, that's my thought behind where I'm going to put my photo. So I'm going to use a little bit of Distress ink on the background just to create a little bit of color behind the photo. And what I'm going to do is a technique that you've probably seen me do before if you've watched my videos. I'm just going to smush some ink onto this plastic packaging and then rub it onto the paper. Before I do that, I'm going to put down a little coat of clear gesso. And I just keep my gesso in an old hair tub because I don't want to have to deal with the bottle. This is just easier, and I like to apply it with a palette knife, so it just works better for me to keep it this way. And so I'm using, like I said, clear gesso because I don't want the lines of the paper to be lost if I were to use a white gesso. So now I've got that applied. And the reason I'm using gesso is because it will make the color won't soak into the paper quite as much, and it'll be a little bit more vibrant, and it will also, with watercolors and different things like that, it just allows the ink to sit a little bit more on top of the paper. And so the gesso dries really pretty quick. Clear gesso is a bit grittier than regular gesso if you've used regular gesso before. And I don't mind if it's a little bit wet still. I'm just kind of too impatient to wait around for it. So what I'm going to do is just smear a little bit of ink onto my packaging here. And I'm using Tattered Rose. This is my most used Distress ink by far. I love it's like a light peachy pink. Just spritzing it with a little bit of water. And then I'm just going to lay down my color. You can just kind of rub it around wherever you want. Okay, so now I want to do just a little bit of Evergreen Bough. I'm going to test it though beneath where my photo will go to make sure this is the color I want, because I think it might be a little darker than what I want to do. I'm putting quite a lot of water so that it really waters it down. I think it'll be okay. I'm just going to do a little bit. Not a ton. I don't want it to mix too much with the pink because the colors don't really go together. I mean, when they mix, they're going to create kind of a brownish color, so I don't want them to overlap too much. So I'll let this dry and then I'll come back and do the embellishment. Okay, so my page is dried and I mounted it to the back of a piece of cardstock. Well, it's not really cardstock. It's from a paper pad, Dear Lizzy paper pad. It's just like an aqua color that matches this little heart perfectly. And then it has some white paint splatters on the edges. And so I've mounted it to that. I also added a little bit more Distress ink in a pink color. This is Worn Lipstick that I added to it. So I ended up using Worn Lipstick, Evergreen Bough, and Tattered Rose. And so now I'm ready to go ahead and finish my layout. So I'm going to place, like I said before, my photo in this kind of bottom right hand corner. And I'm going to do the title, They Adore Him, and my natural instinct is to put the title up at the top left, kind of overlapping the photo. And then that means for me that I want to put some embellishment towards the bottom right of the photo. And so I wanted to use these flowers and maybe kind of tuck them in here somewhere. And then this You Are Loved I thought would be a nice balance because they both have gold on them. So maybe I can kind of tuck that like that. And then I really, really wanted to use this little tab that has the tape on it like this. But I feel like that's not quite balancing the way that I want it to. I'm thinking I'm going to put this heart below the word adore. I'm not exactly sure yet, but I want to balance that heart with this one. So what I'm going to do is just end up cutting this little heart out and using it on its own. But I think I'll put the high down here as well. And maybe this can just kind of layer behind. I kind of like the way that looks. Now, here's a question I'm asking myself right now. So the wood grain goes horizontally, and so do the lines on the back of this paper. So I'm wondering, do I want to switch that up? I think yes. So what I'm going to do is cut this in half so that I can use the other piece if I want to on another place on the layout. And I'll slide this in behind here just as kind of another little layer. And I'm thinking that I might put this little flag up at the top so that I have my embellishment going kind of in a downward. And since I have the floral here, there's floral on this paper, so it kind of brings it all together. And so now what I want to do before I decide on anything else, and I'm thinking still about this tag. I might want to add it in. Oh, maybe I like that. Kind of a heavy embellishment cluster over here. So I'll need to make sure I balance that. What I'm going to do now is find some letter stickers to finish my title because I want it to be They Adore Him. And rather than using the journaling card that I cut out, because this paper has lines on it, I think I'm going to journal directly onto the paper. So I'm going to find those letter stickers and journal on the paper and then come back for the final touches. Okay, so now I've got my journaling down. And I found these letter stickers. They're super old Studio Calco gold letter stickers from 2013. So I guess that's a couple years old. Some of you might think that's not very old, but and I'm going to use those for They and Him. And then I'm going to put the heart to the left of the title. And so I'm ready to go ahead and start gluing down my different embellishments. And I think a good way to, when you're using pieces cut from these cards or die cuts in general, is to give them a little bit more life and dimension, to pop some of them up and glue some of them down. And then, for example, this tag that was printed on the card, I punched a hole in it and added some twine so that it looks like a real tag. So I'm going to go ahead and glue my photo down first. I'm not going to put a ton of adhesive on the edges because I want to tuck things in. Okay, so now as far as popping things up, I'm going to pop up this little heart. So I'm just going to use some of my thin foam squares here. And then this is popping up just a little bit, so I think I'm just going to put a foam square behind that as well. There we go. When you have a couple of pieces of paper or the photo or whatever, it creates a little bit, enough dimension for me to use these foam squares. They're pretty thin, so it feels pretty flat, even though this is glued down flat and this is popped up. And I think I'm going to pop up the word height also. So just put some dimension behind that as well. And then and just stick that right there. And again, I'm just paying attention to where the lines are so that I don't want it to rest directly on the line. It's more visually interesting to me if it overlaps lines and doesn't rest right on a line, if that makes any sense. And so now I'm ready to do the title, and I want it to end kind of right where the journaling starts. And so I'm just going to put the word him. And I'm using the lines as a guide, but I'm not actually resting the letters on the line just because I want them to go a little bit lower than that. And then I need to grab the dot to my eye. So what I do often when I have a little tiny dot that I need to get is I just use my little pokey tool and grab that to put it down. These golds don't exactly match. This is a little bit more of a bronzy gold and this is more brassy, but I'm not worried about that. It looks good enough to me. So I'm going to pop up the word adore and I'm going to just glue down this heart. I'm trying to decide. I think I'm going to rough up the edges of the heart a little bit just so they stand out a little bit more. And I might stitch through it also. Okay, so I've gone ahead and adhered the word adore, and just like I did on this one, I only had to put foam on this half, and then the part that rests on the photo, I just glued directly down because that already has a little bit of dimension from the layers of the photo. And what I've decided to do, rather than stitch on this heart, I'm going to, you can see there's a fake little staple on this card here. And so what I'm going to do is just staple, take my tiny attacher and staple a couple of staples on this heart to kind of mimic that. And I'm going to go ahead and I cut this piece in half here. I'm going to use the rest of that piece up at the top to layer with this little banner so that I kind of get the rest of this line of embellishment. And so I'll just go ahead and glue that down. I'm going to glue the banner to the other piece first because then I can decide exactly where I want the banner to go, because I'm kind of thinking that I want it to, you to be able to read this line here. I don't want to cover up that text. And so just keeping that in mind. And I think I'm going to take it all the way to the top. And again, with the lines, I'm trying to decide where I want the lines to cut across this flag. And I'm always conscious of that, maybe a little more than I need to be, but I'm going to move it up. So I'll cover up the word date and let you see the whole word always there. And then just to carry on the staples, I'm going to just add a couple there to kind of fit the rest of the theme. So now, as a finishing touch, I'm going to add the date, and because this is a Heidi Swapp card and it's in her pretty handwriting, I'm going to use my Heidi Swapp roller date stamp. And I think I'll stamp it a couple times. And I think what I'm going to do actually as my final touch is just add a little bit of black ink. So I'll get my Heidi Swapp black color shine. It's important to shake the color shine up so that you get the ball pumping, because that ball is what kind of distributes the glitter or the shine that's in the ink. Oops. Well, those were very uniform. I gotta mix that up a little bit. Okay. I was a little heavy-handed with the mist there, but that's okay. So that's what I'm going to call done on this layout. And if you have any questions, make sure you leave me a comment, and I hope that you have enjoyed this episode and that you'll join me again next week for more ideas on ways that you can use your Project Life or Pocket Page cards on your layouts. Thanks so much. We'll see you later.